Welcome to the channel. My name is Sean, and I'm going to show you some stuff on a McLaren that you may have never seen before, and what exactly I'm doing with it. So this is my McLaren MP4 12C, and you might notice I've got all of the carbon fiber panels off the sides and the back. Air brake is gone, and we've got the exhaust in place. Now what I have done so far here is these are catless downpipes, and this is the factory sport exhaust. It doesn't normally have this wrap. I just used what I had experimenting with something, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But I've got this wrap that I added on, this factory stuff behind it. And the reason I did that is with the catless downpipes, this is very loud. And not just, hey, it's loud, exhaust loud. I mean, there's a very bad rasp that happens that is so loud, it's embarrassing, but it also makes the gas pedal vibrate. It's a very annoying sound, and it happens to be 264 hertz. So what happens here is, since we have no resonators, we have no cats, it's straight through, we have a problem with the resonation in the pipe. So it comes from the turbos all the way down there, all the way up, goes through this section, out the tailpipe, and under load, it's even worse. When it's cold, it's worse. And there actually is science behind that. Now, where it seems to do it is between about 3,500 and 4,000 RPM, and it's very, very loud. I wish I could convey that in video, but I don't have a good way of getting the audio of that. But it is very, very bad. There's actually a 12 dB gain over everything else, right at 264 hertz. Now, if you do the math, the length of pipe from the turbo all the way up here and all the way to the point to right here, where it's no longer the 3-inch pipe and it goes into this funnel, that at room temperature, 74 degrees, happens to match the resonance of 264 hertz. And I'll show you the math on all that, on how this works out, but it actually has to do with the length of this pipe having a resonant frequency and the engine matching and making that frequency. That's why it's above, it's not as bad, and below, it's not as bad. But right in that range, right around that 3,500 to 4,000, is where it creates that 264 hertz tone that is the resonance of this pipe. Now, one thing that did help with this wrap, it didn't help as much as I hoped it would, but as the exhaust gets hotter, it gets much quieter. So right when I start up, it's very, very, very loud. I drive down the highway for a while. It's not as bad. It's still there, but it's better. Having this wrap makes the exhaust get hotter faster, so it will tame that noise down. I'm not going to say that on the very end of maximum heat that it was any better, but it definitely got rid of that noise, or at least reduced the noise, I should say, faster with this wrap. So in the event that you do have something like that going on, the wrap can help, and it did in this instance. It doesn't help enough, especially when it's cold. I get in and I start driving. It is really, really bad going through the neighborhood. So we're going to fix this. One reason it's doing this is technically an H pipe, and that's generally going to be the root of where this is coming from. The pulses from each pipe do combine, but they don't combine in the most ideal way. As you can kind of tell from here, and not to say this is precisely how exhaust flows, but it comes into here, and then it either has to go this way or this way. So we're trying to equalize pressure where it's kind of getting stopped right here. And there's a little bit more science to it with flow that I can't exactly demonstrate, and I don't 100% understand, but I can tell you that traditionally in any car, not just this one, H pipes are going to do that. So the solution to this is going to be an X pipe. So this is going to come to here, this is going to come to here, and instead of having this section, they're going to connect directly. So I could buy something like that, and a bunch of these are well over $2,000 for this little piece of pipe. That's it. Some are as high as $12,000 and $14,000. It's pretty silly. I'm going to make my own, and I'm going to make it sound how I want it to sound. So I'm going to go to the math and show you exactly what's happening here. And then I'm going to build a new exhaust, which that whole process I'm not going to guide you through because I'll be kind of learning as I do on this and the construction side of that. But I'm going to put it on, and then we will compare how it sounds. Do we have the same raspy sound? All that stuff after this is out and the new one is in. So let's go to that math. And here I've got my spreadsheet that I've created. It has all the math already factored into everything, so all I have to do is plug in the number of cylinders for the engine, the RPM. That's going to tell me the cylinder firing rate and the engine firing rate. And the engine firing rate is going to be the critical point there. That is going to be cycles per second for a 4-stroke engine. And this is actually going to be the frequency that it's producing. The speed of sound is affected by temperature. So I've got it in 3 different levels of practicality by the time you get down to the muffler, tailpipe, that kind of thing. It may actually be higher than this. I haven't tested, but you can see how it changes those with the speed of sound in feet per second at different temperatures, and that comes down here. So this gets figured out off of these 2 things. So around 263, 264 hertz is where I've got the resonance issue. And where that crosses back is the pipe is about 51 inches long from the turbos out to where the tailpipe is, where it changes shape. I haven't done an exact, precise measurement on that, and I'll go back and do that. But where it's worst, where the exhaust has not really heated up at all, 51 inches happens to be the resonant frequency, where 263, 264, and if we change this to 4,000, so it goes to 267, so it's right in that same neighborhood. Right in that area is where it's the worst, and that length still stays right around that 50, 51, 52. Even at 200 degrees, still around 52. Like I said, as it gets hotter, it improves. 400 degrees goes up to 64 inches, so it gets cut back quite a bit, but it's still pretty loud. And down here we've got the side branch resonator, which basically just creates a 180 degrees out of phase frequency to the one that's got the resonance, so it will cut that down in amplitude substantially. So if our resonance is 267 hertz, as we figured out here, we can plug that in here, and the quarter wave, which was very short as a result, so we could actually do the full wavelength because the frequency is so high in this. We'll be going 4 to 5 inches. So I may put those in there just as a precautionary measure or just to manipulate the sound. You have harmonics from these 2, so 1 octave, 2 octave, 3 octaves up, or even 1 octave down. It'll eliminate those frequencies as well, or just bring them way down. And you could do multiple side branches to manipulate several things and do way more frequencies. Just kind of change if you want to change the pitch of it, which is the trick to how some of the high dollar ones do it. But if you had drone in, if you had a front engine rear exhaust and your drone was much lower frequency, let's say you had a drone at 2,000 RPM on a V8, it's 133 hertz. So we get on here, 133. We can use 8 to 10 inches, depending where you want to do it, and that will cut that drone out without having anything actually in the pipe restricting flow. And here we go. This is what I've got. Everything's still apart. I do have the air brake on, so I can do test drive. I have already done a very quick short one, make sure everything was good. There was no pops, cracks, bangs, anything like that. I'm going to do another test drive doing an audio analysis and make sure that the small resonance that I heard, it's gotten a lot better, a whole lot better, but it's still there just a little bit. So that resonant frequency should have dropped a little bit. So I'm going to check that, make sure what that is, validate that against my calculations. I'm going to look at all that data, and then I'm going to add side branch resonators into here because I do have the space to do it. So I'm going to do that on here. Hopefully get it sounding exactly how I want it. And then I can put the whole thing back together, good to go. Now these tips are not what I'm ultimately going to be doing in the end. Right now, I've just got them coming out, you know, in the factory spot there. But I have different tips that are coming. They're not here yet. I'm going to take those factory ones out. This whole piece I'm taking off, redoing this in a plate of carbon fiber, and I've got carbon fiber tips. They're going to come out here. It's going to look a little bit more like a 675 LT. But for right now, we're just getting all this tweaked and tuned until those tips show up. I can get all this made with the final look. So let's take a quick drive and see what we come up with. In the car, a little after 9 o'clock. Is it too late to go for a test drive? No. Is it too loud to start this in my garage and then drive it out? Absolutely. So we're going to kind of make this quick. Well, on some initial testing, on just regular cruising, it appears to have eliminated that sound altogether. I didn't get the exhaust very hot, so still relatively cool, but it seems to eliminate that, and that's where it was the worst. I did still hear it just a little bit at a slightly lower RPM, with it still kind of cool. I didn't run on the highway or anything like that. I just did like a 6-mile city driving, you know, never really got over 40, 45 miles an hour. So in that, I do see some improvement. I think where I'm hearing it now, a little bit at like 3,500 RPM, it's a lower tone, as it should be. But I believe that that is because it brought the 3,800, 3,900 RPM down so far. Now it's just being more apparent to where it's shifted, where it is. It's not as loud though. So I think after I do some highway driving, really get the exhaust nice and hot, it's going to be completely alleviated by having those branch resonators in there. So I'll put it completely back together and test that another day. The weather's not looking so hot, roads are a little wet, and it could just start pouring rain at any time. So I will save that for another time and add that in here. All right, I did over 200 miles of driving just like this, all these panels off, this on here, factory kind of tips and stuff kind of going on here. What I did discover is it felt like everything was great, and then several miles in, several hours in, it seemed like it got louder. Like the resonance, the rasp got worse. Now regular cruising, definitely quieter for sure. But it seems like as I kept going, got hotter and hotter, the rasp got worse, and then I let it cool off for a little while, and then I started driving again, and it was still seeming kind of bad. So I'm not sure if something happened in here, something came loose or whatever, but I'm going to look into that. Maybe I just got accustomed to it being quieter, and so now it just seems extra loud. I don't know, but I'll look into that and see what's what. If I did undershoot the actual temperature of the exhaust after you run it for hours, that would definitely explain it, and maybe just stayed warm after sitting for 2 hours. I don't know, but I'm going to look into that. I'm going to take this whole thing apart again, and then I'm going to start prepping for my tips here. The tips that I order are going to be, like I said, very different, and I've got to take these back off, make filler plate, that kind of thing. So I'm going to work on that now while I'm waiting for the tips to arrive. That should be in the next week or two. I got 2 different sets of tips. Whichever one shows up first might be the ones that I use, but I'm going to get to that and kind of show you what I did after I do it. And here we have it, finally finished. I got the tips in. I've had free time to finish this up since I'm not supposed to be going anywhere. How convenient. Extra free time. So tips are on, everything's secured, we're good to go. This is the final iteration. I've got Acropovic tips, carbon fiber on the outside. These are 3-inch pipe. They do have the angle cut, and I did that so it would flow nicely from the bumper up to the piece up here. So it's almost the same angle. So you look at it, it actually forms kind of a invisible line there. I do think it looks pretty awesome. And I made these carbon fiber panels. They are actually real carbon fiber. The pattern on this, you'll notice they go this way, it goes this way, and then my deck lid is also carbon fiber, and the pattern goes that way. So the pattern matches across everything on the back here. So now I can get the whole thing back together. I've done some initial testing with this to make sure everything is good to go and everything sounds fine, and it's great and wonderful. So I'm gonna put this back together, and then we'll go for a test drive. I hope you've enjoyed this outlook on my exhaust, and I was inspired by somebody telling me that I couldn't do it and it wouldn't sound good because it takes an engineering degree and a ton of R&D and all of this research to make it sound good, but it turns out it doesn't if you just sort of have a clue. This is the first exhaust I have ever made, especially from scratch, and I think it came out very well. I love the way it sounds, and I love the way that it ends up looking in the end too. So if you did like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, hit the old subscribe button, and I do all kinds of other maintenance and modifications to my MP412C, which also applies to a 650S. And I'll be doing stuff to other cars as it comes up. So make sure you check all those videos out, and thanks for watching.